And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast, to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 7 of season 2, I want to remind you guys of a few things. It is officially the holiday season. And so make sure to add to your Christmas list Revved Up 906 merch. Whether your grandma's buying it for you, your aunt, your stepdad, your real dad, no matter who it is buying you your Christmas presents, make sure to give them the link to grindclothingco.com. You can find the link to our merch in our YouTube bio or in the description of this video. We have mugs, little bags. We got beanies. We got mugs. We got stickers. We got sweatshirts. We got crew necks, we got hats, we got polos, we got we got all this stuff. I just wanted to keep going, then my mind went blank. You know, it is what it is. So we are fired up for our number 7 episode, people. So just get ready. But and a few more things. So make sure to add those to your holiday list. Also, our podcast is growing. We want to continue to grow. And in order for that to happen, that's where you guys come in. You have to smash that subscribe button if you are new to the channel. If you are a recurring viewer, make sure to like. And if you haven't subscribed, come on, just subscribe. What is it? I mean, what the heck? Also, there's an arrow button below this video. That arrow button is the share button. You can share our YouTube videos on our channel to Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. If you have friends, family that may be interested in our podcast, make sure to hit that arrow and share button so that word can spread about Revved Up 906. Without further ado, let's get into episode number 7 of season 2. This week, we are going to talk about some players the Pistons could possibly trade for to help them win. In desperate times, it calls for desperate measures, and your Revved Up boys love talking trades. We love wheeling and dealing, talking about what players we could maybe add to the roster, some guys that need to go. You guys probably know some of the players we think need to go. But this week, we're just going to talk about a few players where they might fit in on the roster, why they will fit in, and why they should leave their current situation and maybe have a fresh start with Detroit. Ryan, start us off in episode number 7 and talking about one of the players you think the Pistons should add.
He is being talked about on the trade market a lot right now. It is not Zach LaVine. I do not want him. It is not DeMar DeRozan. I like him a lot. First ballot Hall of Famer. I do not want him. It is OG Anunoby of the Toronto Raptors. Okay. He is still only 26 years old, and he's the 2022-23 steals champ, meaning he led the league in steals that season. Same year, all defensive first team. And then in 2019, of course, has won an NBA championship with the likes of Kawhi Leonard and the rest of the gang there in Toronto. Right. The trade that's being the most talked about for him right now is getting moved to Sacramento, where Toronto would receive Harrison Barnes, a 26 first round pick, top 5 protected, a 28 first, a 31st pick swap, and then Sacramento just gets OG Anunoby. And to me, when I see that, and that's being talked about, and that's what Sacramento would have to give up to get OG Anunoby, us as Pistons fans are sitting there going like, holy crap, we could easily do that ourselves. Right. Now, I'm not saying we need to give up all of our draft capital to get OG Anunoby. That is not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is OG Anunoby is like borderline all-star caliber player, is slowly making that jump into there, but still isn't as valuable or get as much trade value as a Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan-esque player. Instead, you're going to have to get a veteran player on a minimum contract expiring deal, and you're going to have to give up a couple firsts. And I think we could do that. And then also, I think giving up like a guy like Bojan, not wanting to trade Bojan, but if we were to have to trade anybody, Bojan and a couple firsts, like future firsts, not like anytime soon, but future firsts for a guy in OG Anunoby would be pretty solid. This season, he's averaging 15 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, a steal, a block, shooting 46% from the field, 40% from three, and 59% from the free throw line. Career-wise, like, he's right there. He's one of those consistent, like, if I need to get you a bucket, I'm going to get you a bucket. If I need to clamp down on defense, I'm going to clamp down on defense. He's just one of those players for a young Pistons team that's awful on defense and needs a couple more scoring options. He's the guy to do it. He adds defense. He's a quality offense player. And his contract, he's in the last year with a player option next year. So that being said, you'd have to move him. You'd have to take a chance on him wanting to come back to you after this season. So that's why I'm saying it's realistic, but not realistic.
Yeah, and the thing that I like about OG is he doesn't demand the ball to score like a guy like Bojan does. Bojan needs some time to dribble around and kind of dominate the ball in order to find his shot. OG is a guy that just takes whatever the defense gives him, and usually his offense is coming from his great defensive play. He is forcing turnovers, forcing these tough offensive possessions for the opponents, and that turns into quick offense down the floor, and in return, quick buckets for him. But he also does offer that quick off the dribble, catch and shoot, 3-point ability. And that is something that the Pistons drastically need, because yes, we have guys like Joe Harris, and Joe Harris is solid, but we need one of those, like we mentioned it a couple of weeks back, we need one of those top tier NBA players that on any given night can take over the game. And we know Bojan can do that. We know, but OG Anunoby is a little bit more well-rounded as a basketball player. He can offer you a little bit of everything. Bojan struggles defensively. He struggles with the rebounding. OG Anunoby is going to be able to hold his own in those categories. And like you mentioned, has shown that he can lead a defensive category over a whole 82 game schedule. And I'm impressed by that.
Yeah, he is very similar to Asar Thompson. That's the only difference, and I guess not difference per se, but the only issue, if you were to call it an issue, is the similarities between him and Asar Thompson. The difference is OG is a little bit more sound on defense than Asar. Asar is a utility player. That's who he is. He's phenomenal on defense, great on offense. He can do everything. There's not one thing specifically that he's like toned, like really, really good at. Where OG Anunoby, he is similar to Asar Thompson and being a utility player, but he's so much more of a defender than Asar Thompson or anybody else on our team. And something that we struggle with so heavily outside of ball movement and anything offensive related is our defense. So adding in a top caliber player in OG Anunoby, who's pretty much an all-star, will be an all-star this year, I feel like. And the fact that he's still only 26 years old, it's kind of like a match made in heaven.
Okay, I'm about to get into the second player that we got to talk about. But before I get into this second player, if you're watching this, make sure to comment below your thoughts on what it would look like if we did add OG to the Detroit Pistons. If you have any other players in mind, make sure to comment below. This next player, and it's hard because for me, drastic measures need to be in place. I honestly believe that. Tonight, we're recording on Friday night. This is going to come out Saturday morning. That means it's a Saturday morning. You wake up because you just got stomped by the Orlando Magic. So right now, when I'm thinking about what players we need to add to the Pistons, I'm not saying I like OG. I think that's a good idea. I'm not saying like a low level guy, like I don't know if he might hate me, Cam Reddish. Like one of these guys that it's like, okay, he's good, but like we don't know. It's a gamble. You just don't know if it's going to work out, especially on the Pistons. Plenty of guys have gotten traded to the Pistons and they weren't what we thought they were. Okay, so I'm going for a guy. I'm getting a little aggressive here. I'm getting aggressive, but I have been a fan of this guy since his high school days. A guy I think would be brilliant to trade for is Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans. I like the dynamic he would add to the Pistons rather than Bojan. One, much like OG, Brandon is 26 years old. He averages 23 points, 5 assists, 6 rebounds, and 50% from the field. If you watch this podcast for a long time, you know I love efficient shooting. I love to see an average of 50 shooting. I mean, that's incredible. He also offers what Asar Thompson doesn't offer quite yet. Like we mentioned in the recap versus the Orlando Magic, Asar Thompson just isn't there offensively yet. He's there defensively. He's elite defensively, but offensively, it's just not there. So Brandon Ingram's going to come in and be an immediate heat thrower for the Detroit Pistons. But then I also like that he's a rock solid defender. He's very long. The things that the Pistons have struggled with, especially if we're going to have Isaiah Stewart at the 4, is length. Stu is a small power forward. Brandon Ingram is the same size as Stu. He's 6'8", obviously slimmer, a little bit longer. If we're going to have Stu at the 4, we need to make up for that length. And I think Brandon Ingram would help with that. I'm not sure what we would have to do or give up. I'm willing to hear options. Immediately, you think Bojan, right? Because Brandon is a little bit higher of a level of Bojan offensively, and the continuity there offensively wouldn't really work. My immediate thought is Bojan and maybe Jaden Ivey with the draft pick. That's maybe what I'm thinking. But right now, we're at an 18-game losing streak. And if I had to predict it, our next game is against the Indiana Pacers, and we got a couple tough games after that. The losing is going to continue. I hate to say it, but it's going to. Drastic measures have to be in place. And I also see Brandon Ingram playing well alongside Cade Cunningham. He's going to take some pressure off of Cade Cunningham. And we know that teams are game planning for Cade Cunningham. Every team, the only person they're worrying about when the Pistons come into town, the only player they're worrying about is Cade Cunningham. He needs help on the offensive end. He needs a guy that will get attention off of him so then he can do his thing. Ryan, thoughts on Brandon Ingram?
Brandon Ingram, I would not complain with at all. I've always had a soft spot for him. He's been one of the consistently good younger players in the league now for a while. Pretty much basically when he came into the league as a rookie. He's just been one of those go-to players. He was the go-to guy, obviously, with the Lakers when he came in, because that Lakers team was garbage. They had nobody. I mean, you have Kyle Kuzma, you had Lonzo Ball, but these guys were really young. They were rookies. They were very young players. That team was not built to win at all. You saw Brandon Ingram then get moved to the Pelicans in the Anthony Davis trade, which won the Lakers another championship. But I honestly think with Brandon Ingram, they could have won a championship still too. But that also shows you how much I like Anthony Davis, which I don't like him at all. He's annoying and he's a crybaby. I'm sorry, he is.
I agree with you.
But no, Brandon Ingram now with the Pelicans the last couple of years has been one of those consistent go-to guys. You're always going to look for him on offense. You're always going to watch out for him on defense. He's going to clog those lanes and hit those shots when it matters the most. And the Pelicans know that. Outside of Zion, because Zion's not really played in the NBA all that much. Outside of him, they added in CJ McCollum a couple years ago now. They added a couple other good guys like Jose Alvarado, who I like a lot. That team right now is built not necessarily to win, but to contend. They're a couple pieces away. They have Willie Green, former Michigan native, as their head coach right now. Yeah. But I would love to have Brandon Ingram come in. The only issue is, what would we have to give up? You mentioned Bojan Bogdanovic and Jaden Ivey. Maybe a couple firsts. I'd probably see Jaden Ivey for sure. And Bojan Bogdanovic probably for sure too, but it depends if they want Bojan or not. And then they'd probably want like 3-4 first-round picks.
Possible. Yeah.
probably. They're going to want a lot for him
Yeah.
because where the Pelicans are in their season, well, as their franchise is right now and the shape they're in, they're one of those rink playoff teams contending for a championship. I don't think they're going to win one anytime soon because they're a couple pieces away still, but they may see that as like, we need to add a couple more pieces in order to win. We're not going to
Spread it
give up
out.
on Brandon Ingram easily.
Right.
In order for them to give up on Ingram, they need to start not going anywhere, just going on a standstill, not continuing winning, just not winning, not losing, just slowly coasting. That's the only way I see them moving on from Brandon Ingram.
Right.
But otherwise, I would love to have him with the Pistons. I think he would add a whole new dynamic with our roster because then outside of Cade scoring the ball, and you'd really have to watch out for Brandon Ingram, and then not to mention Jalen Duren, as efficient as he is in the paint. Like that would honestly be the first big three the Pistons have had in a while, and that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard because the Pelicans are like that mid-level team right now that is like a couple steps away from like taking that next step. And Brandon Ingram is more than likely a part of that picture. And that's difficult because, and if it's not Brandon Ingram, it's like, I do believe the missing spot, the missing link is in that small forward position, or a bigger shooting guard, whatever it might be. Because Asar Thompson just isn't there yet. Bojan, I don't think is the guy. He's just, he's good, but it's like I just don't think he's going to be the guy that turns us around. What I like about Brandon Ingram too is we know he's going to be elite, but he's not going to mess with the leadership as far as players with the team. We know that he'll just let Stu, Duren be those vocal leaders. You can throw Cade in there too. He's not going to try to mess with that. He's just, he can, if the Pistons go on an 18-game losing streak, I could see him just being like, players only meeting. We're getting down to the bottom of this, but I don't see him like messing with Jalen Duren, Stu, the image of the Pistons right now, and let them stick to being the vocal leaders. It's tough. And like I said, I told you in the car when we were driving around, we were talking about this topic. I was like, I'd be willing if I'm Troy, like I'm throwing Bojan at the Pelicans, I'm throwing Jaden, and I feel bad because we haven't got to look at Monte Morris yet. I'm throwing Monte Morris in there, and then any additions they need that are like a second round, high second round pick or whatever it might be. I'm doing it. It's like it's an 18-game losing streak. The problem
Yeah,
is Brandon, the Pelicans would kind of be starting over.
yeah, and it sucks giving up on players like a Jaden Ivey, so young in their career when they probably have all the potential in the world to be something. But at the end of the day, you need to make moves in order to have success. If you need to move on with some of these guys in order to upgrade. That's the bottom line. That's the recipe for any championship caliber team. Is it gets to the point where your roster, your play as a team as a whole is at a standstill, and you need to bring in somebody to rejuvenate the Pistons or any team in general. And we're at the crossing point in which something needs to happen, whether it be we trade away Bojan Bogdanovic for, I'm not saying we need to trade Bojan, but if we were to trade him for like a good vet player, not necessarily an elite player that we're talking about, but a good vet player, and then some draft capital to rejuvenate this a little bit more. I don't know, but I wouldn't move Bojan for that, but something needs to happen.
Yeah, it's so hard. And I said it a couple weeks ago when this losing streak was, at nearly double digits, that it just feels like something bad is a brewing. It feels like, or it might have been you that said it. You just feel like something is coming, a big blow up, a firing, a trade, whatever it might be. It feels like there's something coming. All right. Third player to cover. Ryan, what are your thoughts for a third guy?
So he is He just got his first All-Star appearance last year. He's a two-time All-NBA first team player, 2018-19 most improved player. In 2019, he was an NBA champion. Wait, I was reading at the wrong spot. My bad.
You're good. You're good. Start over. You're all good.
Okay. He oh man, I would have liked that player too, but this guy, 2014-15 rookie of the year, all rookie first team that same season, and he's an NBA champion in 22-23. Everybody can pretty much agree with me or tell me exactly who this is because it's obvious, but that is Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins currently sitting at 28 years old, still one of the younger players in the NBA, even though he's been in the league for a hot second now. His stats this year, he's averaging 13 points, 4 boards, an assist, 44% from the field, 28% from 3, and 60% from the line. He's having a down year. But that's why I have him on this list and one of those guys that we could probably easily make a move for right now. The Warriors are struggling. They're at, I believe, 11-9 or something like that. Like, they're not very good right now. They're struggling a lot. I love Mike Dunleavy as a player, but I don't know about him as a GM per se. Bob Myers stepping down is gonna put a damper on what the Warriors do here in the near future, because what he did for that franchise as a GM, like, he's a first ballot Hall of Fame GM. He created a culture there with the Warriors. And so right now, the way the roster is, it's a lot more older players than young guys. The Warriors in the offseason obviously traded away Jordan Poole and a slew of other young guys for Chris Paul. That move has neither. It's not. I was not gonna. No, I'm not gonna go there. It's hurt them. It really has. There's nothing special about it. I love Chris Paul. I love what he brings to the game. Even at his older age now that he is, he's still consistently one of those better players in the league. But you look at where they are right now. The Warriors are kind of in a situation like we are in. They may need to make a trade here sooner rather than later to potentially either save their season, or maybe they need to make a shift into rebuild. But I don't see that happening, because when you have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, you're not going to go into a full rebuild right now. You're going to want to win another championship. But Andrew Wiggins he's having a down year to the point where you could easily move. I'm not necessarily saying Bojan, but Bojan's being the common thread here with any of these trade proposals, because nobody's going to really want anybody else on our team.
He's the most dispensable.
Yeah, and then the Warriors, if they're really contending for a championship, they're going to want to bring in a player like Bojan Bogdanovic versus a player like Jaden Ivey, as an example. I'm not saying Jaden Ivey is not a valuable player to have, but with the Warriors' current situation, they're not going to make a move for Jaden Ivey. But I think Andrew Wiggins is going to help our team a lot. He adds 3-point shooting. He's historically one of the better three-point shooting players in the last couple of years. He's a good facilitator, good quality defender. His contract, he's in the first year of a 4-year deal with a player option in 2027. So he has a lengthy contract still at hand. So whatever you give up, if you're talking Harrison Barnes and a couple first-round picks for OG and Anunoby, I would assume much less for a guy in Andrew Wiggins. And Andrew Wiggins, yes, he is 28 years old. He is up there in age. But at the same time, he really isn't that old. And I think he's one of those quiet players in which whatever they say speaks volumes and helps turn things around, because that's what happened when he was in Minnesota. That's what happened when he first came to the Warriors. And I think that would happen again with the Pistons.
Yeah, I do like Andrew Wiggins. I was always a big fan of him, especially when he was at Kansas. He had a lot of hype around him when he got drafted, and he's turned out to be a very solid NBA player, just rock solid. And he's another one of those guys that he's not like Bojan, where he's just kind of one faceted. He can shoot, where Andrew Wiggins can give you a little bit of everything with elite defense, and on any given night can give you 30. So it's like, I do like Andrew Wiggins a lot. I also think he wouldn't mess with the chemistry of this team. I think he would be a good vet leader and be able to kind of give a new dynamic to this Pistons team. Yeah, as far as like who I would see in that trade, it's hard to say. Like Bojan, I agree. I think he's the most dispensable player. But the Golden State Warriors, they might be looking to go a little bit younger. They might have just thought that the continuity on offense didn't work great with Jordan Poole, and they were willing to get rid of him. Kind of like the way we are with Bojan, he's dispensable. We can get rid of him at any point. So for me, like a guy like Andrew Wiggins, he can make an impact right away, and that's what I like. These last, like, since the pandemic, we've been so focused on these passion projects, these players that we're trying to put the time into, but it's just not quite working. We're at the point where, Isaiah Stewart, Killian Hayes, these guys that have been around for 4 years now, like, we've given them the time to develop, and Killian Hayes having one of his better seasons of his career, consistency wise. Stewart, we like him as the image of the team, but he's just not a can carry you kind of player. He's just a rock solid player. It's hard to say, and it might be hard to hear, but we have a lot of just mediocre NBA players right now. We have guys that can show up, be consistent, but they can't lead the team to wins. They can be nice guys in the locker room, give the good interviews, play hard here and there, play tough, stout defense. It's not leading to wins. And a guy like Andrew Wiggins, he knows what winning basketball looks like. By the time he was leaving the Timberwolves, they were starting to be a solid playoff team. And then he's been in Golden State for how many years now? Probably 5 or 6 years. And he's been playing very good basketball there. And he was a key reason why they won that NBA Finals. And he would be a great addition to this team. And I also think he's coachable. That's what I like too. I think he's a guy that can take instruction from Monty Williams. We said a couple times this season that it doesn't matter what kind of game plan Monty Williams puts together when we play against the Cavs. The Pistons aren't executing. Well, Andrew Wiggins to me comes off as a guy that can execute a game plan, and whatever assignment you give him when you play against the Knicks, when you play him against the Cavs, he's going to do what coaches ask of him.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys where if you say it, he's going to do it. Right. Because like with the Warriors, you mentioned it. He was one of those key players to help them win that championship. If you didn't have Wiggins on that roster, honestly, as good as the Warriors are, they wouldn't have won. Right. And that's the bottom line. When he was with Minnesota, he was always one of those better players that you always had to watch out for one. Yeah. But then two, you also respected him a lot because you knew he was that good. Obviously, he didn't get his first All-Star bid until this past year or so. And that's wrong. He should have been an All-Star, but the reason why he isn't is he's a quiet guy. He is. You may respect him. He may be one of the best players in the league because he is, but he's a quiet player. And usually with the fan voting and everything, this is no disrespect to fans at all, but like a lot of you just vote for your favorite players. You don't vote based off of their play. If you voted based off their play alone, Andrew Wiggins would have probably had 5 or 6 All-Star appearances by now, not just right. one. But the thing is, like, I think Andrew Wiggins is, yeah, he is older, but I don't care right now. I just want to win. So even if it may be we throw in maybe 2 first-round picks in the future and like a Bojan Bogdanovic for an Andrew Wiggins, so be it. Because I think the value you'd be getting for Andrew Wiggins alone could surpass the value of potentially those 2 future picks and then Bojan Bogdanovic. Now, I'm not saying those 2 future first-round picks be like anything in the near future because you'd be stupid to do that. I'm saying like 2029 or something like that. Like that's a couple of years from now. Realistically, by that point, we should be better than where we are right now. So that's what I mean by those. And I'm not saying we need to go after one of the cream of the crop NBA players out there right now, where we'd be giving up a lot of our young depth. I don't want that. That'd be bad. We're not going to go after one of these middle tier kind of guys that aren't going to really bring anything. And it's like you mentioned with Cam Reddish, you don't want to gamble on another guy. We don't want to do that. We want to win. So that's why you need to make an effort, make a trade for a guy who is consistently one of the better players in the league and knows how to win. That's what we want, because in order to, I guess, restore, I guess you could say, a winning culture, is you need to add guys who have won. You can't just go after rookies and just they're going through the same cycles of like, oh, this is what it's like to lose. I don't know what it's like to win. I don't know how to win, because clearly it's evident right now, 19 games in a row losing streak, they don't know how to win. So we need to bring in some players that actually do know how to win.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you people, we talked about it. We told you 3 guys that the Pistons could possibly trade for. If any of these guys get traded to the Pistons, we called it. We heard it here first. That will do it for episode number 7 of season 2. Before you guys leave, make sure to comment below your thoughts on possible players the Detroit Pistons could trade for. If you agree with trading for OG Anunoby, Andrew Wiggins, or Brandon Ingram, make sure to comment below. We would love to know your thoughts. Make sure to like and subscribe. We will see you guys in the next Revved Up recap on Monday. Peace.